Hi, hello, I'm Sam Harrison. I read, review, and discuss fantasy and science fiction books. Today I have a review for you of The Dragon Reborn by Robert Jordan, Book 3 in the Wheel of Time. This is a fully non-spoiler review for The Dragon Reborn. However, there is absolutely no way to discuss this book without talking about books 1 and 2. So if you haven't read The Eye of the World and The Great Hunt, definitely didn't forget the name, The Great Hunt, then go back, read those books, watch my previous reviews. Let's get into The Dragon Reborn. As you guys may know, I'm doing non-spoiler reviews on my channel, and then Matt from Basket in the Story and I are doing a kind of buddy read along, full spoiler discussion after reading every single book. So I'm actually now pacing ahead of the spoiler discussions because we haven't had time to record The Great Hunt spoiler discussion yet, and I've now finished The Dragon Reborn. So yeah, I'm real pacing ahead, and the reason why I am pacing ahead is because I bloody love these books. This was an easy 5-star for me. This book is just it's my favourite book I've read this year, I think. Yeah, I think pretty comfortably my favourite book I've read this year. Do you know what? Let's talk setup. So, in book 1, a group of youths is living in a small town called Emmonsfield. It's in the arse end of nowhere, but one day they are visited by a mysterious woman and her kind of bodyguard, and this mysterious woman turns out to be what is called an Aes Sedai, and they are essentially the wizards, magic users of this world, able to channel what they call the One Power. The One Power, which has a male and a female half, and the male half has been tainted by a previous male channeler. Now, and he's called the Dragon, I believe. So this book is called The Dragon Reborn, and that is because the Wheel of Time, as far as I can tell, 3 books in, is a kind of is a world where reincarnation is a thing, where prophecies and patterns kind of reoccur. That's probably a good way to say it. At the dawn of time, the creator, who is the Wheel of Time's god, has locked away the Dark One, whose real name is Shaitan, but you're not really supposed to say that. Now, the Dark One is kind of like the ultimate evil, and the dragon is destined to fight him at what is called the last battle. Now, the last battle, I mean, I know this because people talk about it a lot in fantasy, but the last battle is the name of one of the chapters in the final book of the Wheel of Time, which is apparently over 200 pages long, and takes like 4 hours to read. After reading The Dragon Reborn, I'm very, very excited to see where this story goes. So these youths, are told by Moraine, who is the lady who comes to the town of Emmonsfield, that they are Tavarin. So basically, they are destined to be important people, and they're so destined to be so important that she has to take them away before the Dark One and the Dark Friends, who are humans who kind of worship or work for the Dark One, can kill them all. So that's basically book 1, is them kind of all running away from the Dark Friends and trying to kind of trying to kind of come to grips with what's happening and find out whether there is or is not like a big prophecy thing happening. So genuinely very, very good. The first book was a real surprise for me, because I thought that it was going to be a slog, because people said that it wasn't very good and that it was a big Lord of the Rings ripoff. And I probably shouldn't talk too deeply about this, but I don't like Lord of the Rings. It's never really been my bag. But I really loved Eye of the World. I thought it was a really good book, much better than I was expecting. And then I went on to The Great Hunt. And The Great Hunt is about kind of this big thing where they're hunting down the Horn of Valir, which when you blow the Horn of Valir, it summons this kind of ghost army, and the ghost army is needed in the last battle. So the guys need the horn. Also, at some point in book 1, Moraine decides that Rand, who is one of the 3 boys from Emond's Field, is she decides that Rand is the Dragon Reborn. And Rand kind of is fighting against it. However, he kind of allows everyone to proclaim him the Dragon Reborn at the end of book 2, The Great Hunt. We get a lot of really good character development in book 2. You take these characters from almost kind of archetypes or stereotypes and start to fill them in. And then book 3, let's talk about book 3. Let's talk about the Dragon Reborn. So that's a lot of setup time. Probably shouldn't have spent that much time on it. Let me know in the comments whether it's too much or a bad setup talk anyway. You guys have read these books. You should know what's going on. So in the Dragon Reborn, I'm going to give one very small thing away, which I knew going into this book and did not change my enjoyment of it at all. Rand is barely in this book. Rand has, I think, 1 full POV chapter in the entire book. I've heard, my research tells me that he is in 2.5% of page time. And this is like him being on page, 2.5% of this book, versus the other characters from Emond's Field, Egwene, Mat, and Perrin, who kind of take center stage here. So this book finally gives us good Mat. So I thought that Mat was a absolutely boring and terrible character in the first 2 books. You're told that he's like a trickster and prankster in book 1, and then basically straight away he gets a cursed dagger, which turns him into almost Gollum, where he like hates everyone and is like dying. And in this book, he's cured of the dagger, and we finally get to see Mat's character, and we get to see the effects of the dagger or the curing or something which has changed Mat. So it's Moraine talks about this a lot, about the pattern that the wheel weaves, and the ability that Mat gets is so incredibly interesting, and I loved it. I loved how it does work, how it doesn't work. I had a lot of fun with Mat this book. Matt has all of the funniest lines in this book. There's an incredibly funny bit right at the end with Mat that I actually laughed out loud at, which, in a serious fantasy book, not doing much laughing out loud. Egwene and Perrin also get a lot of great screen time. Egwene had kind of her big moment in the final act of book 2, and a lot of this book is kind of her dealing with the trauma of being enslaved by the Seanchan. So multiple times in the book, she's like, no, I will not be chained, I will not be captured. And that PTSD really affects her throughout the whole book. I really, really liked basically everything. I've said this before. I've said this, earlier in this video. This is a 5-star book, not just because it's beautiful and floppy, and the next book is floppy too. I found it in the bookshop. I didn't buy it because I don't need to read it until April. I'm going to take it on holiday with me. I'm going on holiday in the first week of April. But absolutely love this one. So Egwene, I'm going to put the book down so I can, wave. So Egwene is kind of suffering from the PTSD of the previous book. She's finding her power. She is slowly kind of coming into the realization of her unique abilities as an Aes Sedai, but also how powerful in general she is. And people who, people have said in the book that she has power enough to become the Amiralin seat. We'll get back to the Amiralin seat later, but I made a joke on Twitter about her. We'll talk about it later. So Perrin is going through some interesting stuff himself. So Perrin is he's attached to wolves. So basically, he's like linked psychically, spiritually with these wolves, with all wolves. And we find out in this book, and it's kind of hinted at in previous books, that wolves they stalk the dream world, and we get a lot of dream world stuff through Egwene, because as we know from previous books, she's been identified as possibly being a dreamer, which is a special class of Aes Sedai. And then so we've got Egwene, who's the dreamer. We've got Perrin, who's kind of connected with these wolves, who are also connected with the dream world. We also get a lot of really interesting stuff with Perrin kind of not accepting it, shutting it away, and then being kind of forced to accept it near the end of the book, which I found really interesting as well. And I'm desperate to see what goes on with Perrin as we evolve, because I feel like he's kind of in that place that Egwene was in at the end of book 2, where he's kind of stuck between what he wants to be and what he is, but he's kind of accepted what he is, whereas Egwene at the end of book 2 was kind of, she'd had this big pivotal moment in the same way that Perrin has his big pivotal moment of these 3 books at the end of book 3. So kind of the fallout from that pivotal moment will be really interesting. Well, at least I hope it will be, Mr. Jordan. You can't watch this because you've sadly passed away. Matt is, I think I talked about this already, but Matt's excellent in this book. Matt's really funny. Matt's whole storyline is really, really good. He links back up together with a recurring character we've seen in previous books, who I really like. And it's great to see also the fallout, what's going on with that character from what happened to them in book 2. So this character kind of disappears in book 1, reappears in book 2, and spends some time with Rand, and then something awful happens to them, and then this book is kind of them basically kind of drinking themselves to death and kind of staying away and staying out of it, and then being dragged back in by Matt. So great story, great book, love the characters. It's very hard for me to give negatives. Pardon me, very hard for me to give negatives on this one, because I just generally really loved it. One of the final chapters was like an hour in audiobook, and it was riveting the whole way through. I had an absolutely fantastic time reading this book. I have continued to listen to the Rosamund Pike audiobook narration, and I'm extremely sad because the next one is not out, and there is no sign of the next one being out. I don't know whether I'll go back and watch some of the TV show now, because I've heard that the TV show season 2 covers book 2 and 3, and I would like to see some of the moments from this book on screen. I think that would be fun. I do still think of Rand as Josh Strahadowski. I'm bad with names, but I still think of him as that actor. And I imagine him as that actor. And same with Perrin, Egwene, Nynaeve. I do really think of that. I think they were well cast in the kind of the way that they look. Rand especially, I mean, they talk in the book about how he looks really different to all of the others, and he really does. So like Josh Strahovski is obviously, I think he's Swedish or something like that, and he's got a very European look, whereas none of the other characters do. Speaking of how Rand looks, we also get In terms of world building stuff, we get a lot more time with the Aiel, which I really liked. Like every time the Aiel turn up, I'm like, these guys rule. Like they're absolute badasses. We get to see, I mean, I talked a bit about this to a friend, but every book so far, we've kind of had like a deep dive into a different culture. And in this one, we get a lot of Aiel culture, but we also get the world of Tyr, where channeling is outlawed, and also people don't carry swords unless they're super rich, which is quite fun. So all the characters that have swords, like Lan and Rand, and all those are like stand out like a sore thumb. Yeah. I mean, world building wise, we get to learn, about some new cool world building elements. We get to see some more Forsaken. The whole kind of book revolves around this magic sword that lives in Tyr in a fortress called the Stone. So, what was that? The Sword in the Stone? Jordan kind of showing his love for fantasy history and mythology, and kind of weaving his own mythology out of the parts from these stories he loves. Really, really interesting. Really loved it. As I said, the ending is fantastic. This is the first book where I feel like the ending is reminiscent of like a Sanderson ending. So in book 2, with the ending, you do get like a big kind of climactic ending where everything all comes together. But I feel like it was just a little bit better done in book 3. I really like that because most of the book is not from Rand's point of view. You kind of like see him in the periphery for a lot of the ending. So there's like a bit where Matt's like, he could have sworn he saw Rand, but it probably wasn't. He would have been crazy to see him. And like everyone keeps saying it. And it reminds me a bit of how in the first couple of books, Rand and Perrin are both like, oh, I wish I was as good as talking to girls as Rand, or as good as talking to girls as Perrin. And like, neither of them knows what they're doing, and they're just kind of fumbling through. There is a reference to that as well, where Matt meets some women and he's like, oh, wish I was as good as talking to girls as Rand or Perrin. And that made me laugh out loud as well. Matt's just fun throughout the series. I absolutely see why he's people's favourite character from here on out. I think that is he more interesting because the first time you see him was, the first 2 books for Matt even were so rubbish. Like, he's got so little to give in those books that when you get so much of him in book 3, I wonder if that kind of flipping it on its head is why he's even more interesting in this book. I'm looking forward to Matt getting his kind of inciting moment. Like I've said, Egwene has hers with the Seanchan, and Perrin has his at the end of the Dragon Reborn, and I can't imagine that we don't see something like that from Matt in the next book or so. Rand kind of has his at the end of book 1, maybe the end of book 2, where he, is revealed to be the Dragon Reborn. Lots and lots of really, really good stuff in this one. The things that I didn't love about this book are extremely, extremely minor, and we're talking like personal preference, not even things where I'm like, this probably would have been better if X, Y, Z. Honestly, this book was a little shorter than the previous 2 by like 50 or 60 pages or whatever. And I felt like we got no Lan in this book, really. We didn't get much Moraine, but like the bits when she turns up, she's like kind of flows in, is a badass, and then disappears, which is great. I really like when characters do that. Yeah, not enough Lan in this one. We didn't have much Lan in the previous book either, and I'm feeling a bit worried that he's going to become a background character. But Celavi, I think, All the other characters are now improving to the point where I like them as much as Land and Moraine, who were kind of my favourites in book 1. So that's kind of a good thing, I would say, more than anything else. Great to see some returning characters. I would like to see more of Hurin. I've got to imagine he comes back, as, you know, doesn't die. I really like seeing more of the Aes Sedai, and we're now in that kind of post Black Arja reveal, so Egwene and Elaine, God, those names. Jordan, if you're going to write 2 characters who are going to hang out all the time, don't make it Egwene and Elaine. Come on. So Egwene, Elaine and Nynaeve are now kind of in the thick of it with the Black Arja, and there's some really interesting stuff going on there. We get introduced to Hellhounds, or Darkhounds, I think they're called, and the Grey Men, both of whom are really cool conceptually. And Perrin kind of like being a defense against the Grey Men was great. And Lan's like genuinely like, oh, actually, like, you're really useful. I didn't think you were useful before, which is great fun. So yeah, I think probably a good place to leave it at the end of this review. I mean, I've said before, this is literally like 5 out of 5, no issues really. Like, the most minor issue is I wish we'd seen more of 2 characters that probably are actually made better by how seldom they're used. I would like to see more Min. Obviously, you know, she's in the book quite a bit at the beginning and then kind of splits off. Would like to see more Aes Sedai stuff, but, you know, at the end of the day, I feel like every time I talk about these books, there's like more books, but I'm pretty certain someone the other day said 15 books or like 14 books, whatever it is. We've got a lot of time to get really in love with these characters, so I'm happy to wait. Yeah, it's just good, guys. It's just good. It's really good. It's going to be a struggle to beat this for my book of the month. I'm saying that right now. And I do have the end of the Richard Swan's Empire of the Wolf trilogy this month, which both of those have been book of the month. But it's going to be a struggle, and I cannot wait to start The Shadow Rising. I know all the names of the Wheel of Time books, but I can never remember what the order is. But yeah, Shadow Rising next month. The Great Hunt spoiler discussion is coming soon. Dragon Reborn spoiler discussion will be me, Matt from Bask in the Story, and Ross from Hardy's Books, who is reading this, and I'm really excited to talk to both of those guys about this book. I could talk to people about this book until the cows came home. However, YouTube doesn't like long videos, so we're cutting it here. If you like this video, please do like it. If you have read The Dragon Reborn and you want to chat with me about it, please chat down in the comments. I will reply to every comment. I love talking about this book. Please do talk to me. Please talk to me about this book. Please subscribe to the channel to see more Wheel of Time content coming up. I'm going to do I think maybe a recap discussion sort of thing about the first 3 books and just be like, initial trilogy of the Wheel of Time, how do I feel about it? I've kind of gone through that in each video and kind of updated, but I feel like for perpetuity, it might be interesting to do that kind of books 1 to 3 full whole holistic discussion. And as I said, spoiler discussions coming soon. Yeah, subscribe to the channel. We'll read the Wheel of Time, and I'll speak to you tomorrow. Wait, don't go yet. I'm doing a charity drive for BCHC, the Birmingham Community Healthcare Charity. They are a charity attached to the Birmingham's kind of National Health Service, and what they do is they raise money for small little things that can help support patients and the families of patients, things like books, toys, toiletries. Also, they do big projects, like they have funded the creation of a playground for children with prosthetic limbs. Now, if you would like to support this charity, you can go to the link in the description for this video and donate some money to my charity appeal. I'd be really grateful if you do so. This is an absolutely fantastic charity. While they aren't local to me, the charity drive is run by a friend of mine, Stace, and I don't know about you, but I'm going to be reading as many books as possible in March anyway, so might as well use that to raise some money for a good cause. Please donate to the link in the description below. Thanks so much for watching. See you soon.